Good to see everyone here. How you doing, Pete? You okay? We've had a nice chat upstairs about all sorts of things, actually. That's one of our favourite books and films, which we may come to later, but I think mainly to more important things. This, I'm comfortable there, is that okay? We are live streaming this to the States, by the way, as well, so just to say hello to our friends in America. I think it's quite early in the morning over there. So let's talk about this farewell tour. The song is over. 16 shows in all. You're going to be at Boston's Fenway Park, New York's Madison Square Garden, Los Angeles' Hollywood Bowl, Toronto's Budweiser Stage. Obviously venues you know very well, but how excited are you to be getting back out to a continent that for someone like me, a Salisbury girl, a country girl, that still has never lost its mystique and rock and roll grandeur? It's still so exciting.
Well, I think probably everybody in this room knows the truth. So it would be pointless for me to lie.
Oh, yes.
I'm not crazy about touring. I've never really been crazy about touring. But performing, once I'm on a stage, I was hypnotised once as a little boy by my dentist who was experimenting with hypnotism, that whenever I walked on a stage, I would do my best. I thought I was going to be an artist. I was at art college. And that's what happens. I get on the stage, I remember that hypnotic, post-hypnotic suggestion, and I do my best. And that's how it works for me. I find it easy. It's always been easy. But being on the road is not a great way to live. You know, you leave your family behind and so on and so forth.
I don't know what to do with this.
But there's...
Roger, are you there? Hello, Roger. We're talking about touring in America, and I was saying, even for me, this great continent still holds such a great mystique and a rock and roll legacy, and holds so much love for The Who, and always has done, right from the first time you played their live. So for them, it must be so thrilling to know that you are coming back, essentially to say
I hope so, eventually.
Well, you are. You're going to be there.
We're going to be there, I mean, you've got to remember where we come from. We were, you know, post-war England, the land of Spam, jam sandwiches, and then everybody's dream was to make it successfully in America. Every musician, young musician's dream was that. Because that was where we first heard the pulses of rock music coming from. And that really was to have America take us to its hearts. It meant so much, and you've been so loyal to us, and I hope we've given back to you in the same manner. But it's got to come to an end one day. It would be great to do it while I can still sing the songs in the same key. Pete's still playing great guitar, and the music's still got a vitality that suits it, because there's something about the way Pete's music is written and the way it's shaped and the sentiment behind it. It doesn't seem to age like a lot of rock music does.
Can you remember the first time you played live in the States? It goes back to 1967 in New York. Murray the K's Music in the Fifth Dimension.
We didn't do a show before that.
Did you? Well,
we did one show in a school gym in Ann Arbor, in Michigan.
Yeah.
And it was a high school, Setlists High School gymnasium. And I don't know why we didn't do any more. We went back to England. And then we went back and did the Murray the K show, you're right, in 1967.
And you were there with...
I remember the first time we played there, it was, people kind of stood open-mouthed.
Well, Wilson Pickett was there, Smokey Robinson, Simon and Garfunkel. So, I mean, it was quite an incredible lineup. And at that point, you were the new British band, weren't you?
I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about the first time we did.
No, let's go back to the gym. Yeah, go back to the gym.
Well, the high school gym was great. I mean, we arrived in this little town just outside of Detroit, Ann Arbor, and that the evening we got there, we were taken to a casino where we sat with a bunch of people from the record company watching Frank Sinatra Jr. I'll never forget that. And then the next day we turned up at this little kind of school, gymnasium, set our equipment up, went about playing our songs, and the audience just kind of stood open-mouthed. We didn't know how we'd be received, but on the smashing of the guitar at the end, they went absolutely nuts. So we thought, well, there's hope. There's hope of us making it in America. And then, of course, it was the Monterey K show, and that was a big step forward. But it took a lot of schlepping and touring in tour buses before we actually made it big in America. An awful lot of work went into doing it, and it wasn't until really Woodstock, well, Tommy, the record, which eventually led to us playing Woodstock, that really cemented us into American pop culture.
Pete, can we talk about some of the bigger festivals as well? Roger just mentioned Woodstock there, but Monterey in particular, which was before Woodstock. I wish I'd been there. That sounded incredible. What are your memories of that?
I've been there.
My memories of Monterey are very mixed because Jimi Hendrix was on the bill, and I followed him with a bunch of other guitar players like Jeff Beck and Eric Clapton. We went to see all of Jimi's early London shows. He did about 20 shows in various clubs in about 3 weeks, and all of them were spectacular and mind-fucking in a way. And then we heard that he was coming to Monterey as well, and that he planned, the word was that he planned to smash his guitar, which he'd never done before. And so I was very, very nervous. But it was actually a beautiful event, I think. It was a beautiful event. I remember Brian Jones was there. He flipped a coin for whether or not Jimmy went on before we went on. I felt it was wrong for The Who to go on after Jimmy, to be honest, because I felt he was a superior performer, and I still feel that, and certainly a better guitar player. I won't say he sang better than Roger, because he didn't, but he certainly played better guitar than I did. And it came up that we would go on before Jimmy, which I was kind of relieved about. So I was in the audience, sitting next to Mama Cass, when Jimmy went on, and she got hold of me and she said, "He's doing your thing." And I wish it was true. But anyway, the other thing that happened to me was on the way back, which was kind of more spectacular, was I was given a little pill by the Grateful Dead chemist, Daltrey, which was called STP. So on the whole of the trip on the plane on the way back, I was looking over at Rog, who looked like an angel, and looking at the air hostess, who looked like a little pig, and got back, landed in the UK in the middle of the hippie era, and decided not to do drugs anymore.
Roger, is it true that Monterey, you didn't actually get paid for Monterey, is that right?
I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. I mean,
No, we didn't, Rog.
We had no control over any financial things in those days. We used to get paid a weekly wage, and to their credit, our management used to deliver it, and we were happy with that. You know, well, I was, because it paid the rent, and I was able to feed myself, and I had a wife and a child at the time, who I then divorced, of course. But and the management, they used to pay us a weekly wage, not very much. I mean, in today's money, it would probably be, you know, $800 a week, something like that. Certainly no more.
So that was back in '67, and that really launched The Who to mainstream acclaim across America.
I think it did. I think the other thing, though, is that right from the beginning, going back to memories of America, we have, I think it's fair to say that our strongest audience is New York based. And I think that's very much because of the Monterey K show. We were supposed to do 6, but we did 4 shows a day for 2 weeks. I think it was that's roughly what it was.
Sorry, 4 shows a day?
Smashing a guitar at each gig, yeah. and so I had to repair them in between shows. And it was just when we were sort of indoctrinated into the way that American music fans were different to the UK music fans and the European music fans. This sense of, yeah, they came and they had a good time and they shouted and screamed, but they really, really, really listened. We had experienced that in universities in the UK. We played in lots of, what do they call them, the common rooms of universities, where people sat down and had a drink or rolled a joint and really listened. But in America, there was this sense that there was something else going on, that it was a much more intimate relationship.
Just talking about the songs across your 6-decade career, what songs, what tracks are you particularly excited to include in this farewell tour in America? Can we start with you, Roger? Any that you really want to make sure you get played?
Well, I think, you know, the trouble is Pete's written so many great tracks. We are never going to please all of our audience, and it is a fact that a lot of people have got memories of things that's happened in their lives where they've been at a Who show. You know, they've met their future wives and husbands at Who shows. And they now bring their grandchildren. So you know, us being out there performing for the last time is really just to say thank you and just deliver those songs. And I don't think there's any way we're going to be able to do a show, any of the shows, without doing Won't Get Fooled Again, without doing Barbara O'Reilly or Behind Blue Eyes. And the rest is up for grabs. I mean, I know all the songs. I perform quite a lot more with my solo bands than the Voodoos, because the audience is much more forgiving. I don't have to please 20,000, 25,000 people all night. I only have to please 3.
Pete, what
So it's very difficult. So I can't tell you what we play, but if you know, if anyone's got any great ideas, and don't tell us to fuck off, you know, I'm happy to receive them. Always looking for inspiration, because all through our career I kind of done the set list. I used to much prefer it when we didn't used to have a set list. But in today's technology world, where you mix the sound from out the front, you have a light show and all that everyone seems to expect, it's impossible not to have a set list, because you're working as a military unit. Every you know, the gun batteries rely on the infantry. You know, it's kind of, running a show these days is totally different than how it used to be. We used to turn up with a load of amplifiers, a PA that was set up on the stage. We know what songs we would start with, and then as we went through the show, you would feel the emotion of the audience. And I used to shout out to the guys the next song, and then they used to play it because they knew them. But you can't do that with an enormous crew all pulling together to make the event that people expect to see these days.
What do you think, Pete? Do you, are there any particular songs? Or you mentioned that the song is over. Will that?
I mentioned that as a joke.
Yeah. why call the song is over? I mean, it works well.
It's Roger's idea, and I think it's brilliant. I think it's a song that we haven't played. Roger always comes up with really great names for tours, but I think that this one is rather poignant. Yeah. It's from the Lost Lifehouse project. It was featured on The Who's next album. It's a really good song, I think, and we are still learning to play it.
So it might feature. Can we just talk about the helmet here from the cover of the Odds and Sods compilation album, which was, when did that come out?
I don't know.
With the K-On Now, I think, Roger, I don't think you can see this. We've got.
I think that came out around 1975.
Yeah, mid-70s, yeah.
And
so we've got, I think it's your helmet here.
that's the one I wore.
Yes.
But I bought all those helmets. I was with my cousin Graham Hughes, who was our photographer at the time. It was my idea to put Odds and Sods together, because we did have a lot of tracks left over from the recording of Who's Next, and really good tracks. And I thought, what do we do with all this stuff? Well, let's do an album. I didn't come up with the name of Odds and Sods, I think. I don't know who came up with that. I don't know.
I think, Graham.
And we just had, Graham and I came up with this idea, you know, because we were legendary for fighting. So, you know, American football seemed to us like one great big fight. So we thought, let's get some helmets and we'll get our heads together, we can do what we did on that album cover. And it was a straightforward photograph at first, and then I tore it up and said, oh, you know, it'd be better if we do this with it. So I ripped it apart, and we put the insert sleeve was a picture of our audience from the stage, looking up at us on the stage. And it was coming through the cracks where we, you know, sellotape the whole picture back together. And I think it made a great cover. But when we came to take the photograph of the band putting their heads together with our names on their helmets, my helmet, Pete's helmet, the helmet that I bought Pete to wear with his name on it, which is that one you've got, it didn't fit him. But my one did. So we swapped. So if you look at the album cover, Pete's wearing Roger and I'm wearing Pete.
Right. Okay. Well, this is on kind loan from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I do believe. So thank you very much for sharing that. Maybe we can have a picture with it on later. I'll try it on later. I think we're going to have some questions now from some of our audience that have kindly sent them in. Sunta Templeton from Radio X Classic Rock is here. There she is. I'll ask this to both Pete and Roger. First of all, Pete, 6 decades since you started out. How do you explain your longevity, and what advice would you give to your younger selves?
You know, I'll go back to what I was saying before. This wasn't a career that I chose, it chose me. And, you know, that act of hypnotism really changed the way that I performed. I've always been creative. So creativity has been what sustained me, rather than performing. And, you know, getting to this point where we're about to go back and represent ourselves to an American audience and address the fact that everything comes to an end is a very poignant time. But that it's been about the relationship between the audience and us. And there are long periods, what do you call it, periods when we've been inactive, you know, nearly 11 years in the 80s. And what's so interesting is that the fans have patiently waited. And so coming back, and often, you know, we don't perform as much, we don't tour as much as many bands do. So a lot of our fans are patiently waiting a lot of the time to see us. So the longevity has been something that's just happened. You know, time passes as you get older, it passes faster and faster and faster until you find yourself here. You know, at the point where you have to accept that you can't do what you used to do. On the other hand, and I don't know whether Roger agrees, because Roger does a lot of solo work, as he said, you know, and I've done a bit in my time, and there is a lot of liberation in doing solo stuff. You can do things that you can't do. But when we look at artists like the Stones, like Bruce Springsteen, and other much older artists like Bob Dylan, one is inspired in a sense to think, what could we do that would be new and different? And I think, for me, the joy is when I work on the stage, when I hear Barbara O'Reilly rippling away, I think, I wrote this when I was 26. You know, it was an electronic piece of music. Wasn't I clever? And then we have to perform it. And so for me, it's the link between the creative stuff and the performing that's what, again, I look forward to on this tour. I look forward to going up. Whatever we play, the chances are I will have written it. So there's that sense of closing a circle, having one last grab at trying to bring that thing to life. You know, and some of the songs from the Who's Next album kind of paved the way for stadium rock.
Roger, do you have any advice for your younger self with the benefit of 6 decades of a life in rock and roll?
Yeah, read the contracts. advice. No, as a singer, I mean, everything that's happened to me in my life adds to my experience, which adds to what the quality of the emotion contact that's coming out from my voice. My voice isn't, I can still sing songs in the same keys as back in those days, but it's got a totally different quality. That's because there's 60 years of living coming out in that voice. Even though you're saying the same word, the expression that's being connected is just that bit different. That's all I can say. And I've always, I mean, I was a singer from 6, 7 years old in the church choir, so to make it as a singer, especially after being a sheet metal worker, was an absolute dream come true.
We have a question from Rick Sky is here from Band Showbiz. There he is. Rick, we have kind of touched on this as you're announcing the farewell tour. Would you consider letting the fans choose a selection of the songs they would like to hear? It would be interesting to know what songs different countries or territories choose.
Roger says no very quickly, but in fact, Roger does listen to what,
I do listen.
Yeah, to what the fans say. I don't so much, and the reason is that I'm not very good at remembering lyrics. I'm not very good at remembering the songs that I've written. You know, if somebody said, you know, and often this happens to me at gatherings where I might have a guitar and somebody says, will you play such and such a song? I think, can I? You know, or will I make a mistake or not? So I need to rehearse things and I need to be up to par. So, you know, the answer is no. You know, we wouldn't be able to. For example, when we tried to play Song Is Over at the recent TCT gigs, we hit a wall. And we realised also that it was nearly 5.5 minutes long, so we cut it. We forgot that we cut it. So it turned out to be a bit of a disaster. So we have to at least rehearse the material that we do. But sometimes on the road, Roger does come and say, you know, in the sound check, let's try running through, let's say a song like Relay that we haven't played for a long time. And if we get it and we play it, particularly the front row fans all go nuts because they've been waiting to hear that stuff and they've asked for it many times. So we kind of open to suggestions.
I'm just checking that we're still okay for time. I'm going to, there's a couple of nice questions that have come via social media, Instagram and Facebook. Vivian.ly on Instagram, this is for Roger. Can you elaborate a bit more on your experience with musical frisson? You mentioned it briefly at the beginning of your memoir, and I found it fascinating how you experienced it while singing your own songs. Are there any particular Who songs that you experienced the most frisson with, and why?
That's a big word. What does it mean?
I asked the same thing.
I know, what is this?
So it's the excitement, the thrill you get, that association you get with the thrill of singing music.
I don't know. It's like an energy comes through me that I can only get when I'm singing songs that I love to sing, and I'm passionate about connecting. There's a feeling when I hear the lyrics. I can hear a million songs and I like the melody and I think that's all right, but I don't want to sing it. But there's something about the way Pete's always written that I've always been absolutely passionate about, just making the audience connect to it emotionally. Totally, you know, I can't explain it, I wish I could, but I don't feel whole unless I'm singing. That's when I'm most comfortable in my life, because I'm almost on another planet. That's what it feels like. You know, you're searching, you're exploring the melody, and believe it or not, if you put two shows back to back, you will notice there are slight differences in every one, and that's coming because I'm emotionally feeling a little bit different there. And it is strange, and I can't explain it any more than that. I've done a reasonable job for me. There you go.
Well, that is the musical frisson, and we also have a message or a question for you from Jeremy on Jeremy King on Facebook about your choice of guitar, which for many years has been a Strat. Why a Strat as opposed to previous favourites like Les Paul or SG-10?
I'm not the person to talk to about guitars.
Really?
Yeah, really. I don't have a relationship with the guitar. So, it's a tool, and I've quite a few famous guitar players have spoken about the guitar as a tool. I think we're in an era now where some guitars have been made for hundreds of years, like Stradivarius violins, and they become incredibly valuable because they're old and they're collectible, and rich people will pay huge amounts of money for them, but they're still a slab of wood with strings. And for me, I practice a lot on the guitar, if I can, at home, on acoustic and electric. And, I have an acoustic and electric guitar in every one of my bedrooms and in various places I live and work. But I think recently I bought 2 guitars from online. I bought a Paul Reed Smith guitar and a guitar called a Jackson, which is made by Fender now, I think. But both those guitars, I plugged them in and they completely blew me away. But on stage, I have to go back to something which is proven, which I know is going to do the job, and which isn't going to fall apart in my hands, because I'm pretty brutal.
Really?
Yes.
Amazing. I think the question that everyone wants me to ask is that this is the North American farewell tour. We have to ask about the UK and Europe. Are there any plans to officially say goodbye to us here? Or?
I'll leave that one to Roger to answer.
Oh, Roger.
Oh, thanks, Pete. Let's see if we survive this one. I've just finished a solo tour in the UK, and I've got to say that a tour in America is a damn sight easier than a tour in the UK, because for some reason or the other, the UK has decided to make it as difficult as possible to go from A to B. And in America, you seem to want to make it as easy as possible. But we are in the land of no. I don't want to say that there won't be, but equally I'm not confident of saying there will be. And that's the honest answer to that.
I would agree completely. I think I really enjoyed the last tour that we did, but it was a strange one. We played a lot of open air gigs. We'd had an insurance problem, which meant that we couldn't play some of the more classic places that one plays on the UK tour. But, the door is open to us. We could do a week at the O2, we could do a week a couple of weeks maybe at the Albert Hall. There are all kinds of things we could do. But, we don't do consecutive shows. We like to do a show and then take a break. So I think...
I can't do consecutive shows.
That's right.
Occasionally, at the end of the tour, I might be able to do 2 back-to-back, but I've been ordered by my throat specialist, my voice specialist, to say you have to have a day off after every gig, and then after every 3 gigs you have to have 2 days off, because otherwise you will wreck your voice and you will not be able to sing.
Right, we're out of time, Rog.
No, we ignore him. There's one more question I want to ask you both. This is from Tanya_Cvet on Insta, who says, what's the one song you want to be remembered for?
Love Rain on Me.
Love Rain on Me, okay. Beautiful. And Roger, is there one song?
For me,
he does a very good job on Love Rain on Me.
Yeah.
I like them all. I can't pick one. Love Rain on Me or Behind Blue Eyes would be one of those.
Gorgeous, yeah. I think that's pretty much all we have time for. Let's just quickly remind everyone it's the Song Is Over tour. The North American Farewell Tour begins on August 16th in Florida, ends on the 28th, September 28th at the MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas. Tickets will be available starting with a city pre-sale and through the Who fan club beginning on Tuesday, May the 13th. Additional pre-sales will run throughout the week ahead of the general on-sale beginning Friday, May 16th at 10 a.m. local time at thewho.com. So that's the important bit done, all the dates you will see in your press releases. So Pete Townshend and Roger Daltrey, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you know, here's to America. We're very jealous of America. They're going to get you. It's going to be amazing.
Well, I just like to thank you for saying, in my opinion, America's always been great.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and with steak.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for coming along. It's been great. And yeah, let's have a chat and a mingle. Pete and
Okay.
Roger, thank you so much.
All right.